How does a man decide in what order to abandon his life? Last week, I read No Country for Old Men by Cormac McCarthy, and I'm just going to say it right now, it's probably the best book I've read all year. I still think The Stand by Stephen King is my favorite book I've read so far this year. I gave it the highest score. I liked it the most all the way through. But I think No Country for Old Men is probably the better book. And honestly, no word describes this book better than brilliant. I mean, this is truly an exceptional novel. You know, obviously, a lot of people know this already. No Country for Old Men is not like some like hidden gem that you've never heard of. This is a very popular American novel. You know, it's a modern day classic. It's something that I think is going to stick around for a very, very long time. And Cormac McCarthy is not some hidden gem author either. You know, he's written The Road, he's written No Country for Old Men, he wrote The Blood Meridian, for goodness sake, and that's, you know, that's a whole thing. You can talk about that later. I might read it, might not. But yeah, this is not by some like weird thing like a underrated gem that nobody's read. This is a very, very popular book and a very highly praised book, but for good reason. This was really intense. This is, yeah, probably the most intense book I've read all year. This was a heart pounder. This grabbed me by the throat from page 1 all the way to the final page, to the final sentence, to the final period, and it never let go. It never slowed down for a singular second. Everything about this book had me in its grips. But in order to try, like, I don't know how to explain why this book is good. Like, usually I can list off certain aspects about the books I read to you guys, and you can kind of get a certain, you know, level of, oh, I might be able to look forward to this, or I might be able to look forward to that. You know, maybe it's the character work, maybe it's the world building, maybe it's, you know, something else, maybe it's the writing. But this book is really unique because, you know, it doesn't necessarily have characters, I would say, that are just like, oh, the development is incredible. You know, these are just totally like fifth dimensional beings, and you're gonna fall in love with them. But there are really good characters. They're really good, relatable characters. Especially, you know, I haven't, but especially I think if you live in the South, you might really relate to these characters. I don't. I'm a Northeast boy. But I'm just saying, if you live in the South, you might be able to relate to this really well. But they're not necessarily characters I would call like the most fleshed out of all time, and it's just incredible. The world building, it takes place here in the United States. I can't really comment on how great the world building is. You know, it's an American novel. If you live in America, you're going to appreciate it more, especially if you've, you know, this was written in, I think, 2007. And, you know, if you're someone who's ever been touched by, you know, the drug war, you might appreciate this. The atmosphere, though, I can't comment on. It's intense. This book is about a man who accidentally stumbles upon millions of dollars and several pounds of heroin, and a bounty hunter, or whatever you want to call the antagonist of this story, hunts him down throughout the rest of the novel while the sheriff's department tries to figure out what's going on and who these people are and what exactly happened. It's a crime thriller. I would call it a thriller anyways. But it's more than just a crime thriller, because it's not just about the crimes that are being committed or the fact that this guy is on the run from very dangerous men, and a very dangerous man specifically. This is really a book that is more about almost the American experience. What is a man willing to do to get ahead? Are you willing to compromise your morals? Are you willing to sacrifice your life? And are you like willing to just like go that extra step into the darkness that is the criminal life, in order to achieve what you want? And what do these things do to you? What does money do to a person's soul? What does someone who's stumbled upon millions of dollars, what is their reaction going to be to that? Like, there's some interesting social commentary here about the nature of the American experience and maybe the degradation of our society and how it's occurring, whether it be drugs, alcohol, sex, and the general violence that has seemingly increased over the last several decades. I'm not going to get into that. But Cormac McCarthy is really playing with a lot of ideas that are central to the American way of life. I would dare say that we are a country that believes deeply in free will. I think most Americans are people who believe in rights. They believe in free will. We are a group of people who don't necessarily believe that in determinism. We are people who believe that if you work hard enough, if you do the right things, if you set yourself apart, you're going to make it. Whether that's true or not is totally up for debate. But I think the American people, at least from my experience, is a group of people who, we believe in determining your future for yourself, and no one else can say anything about that, because that's the American way of life. That's our liberty, that's our freedom, whatever. I think, at least on the surface, that is who we are as a country, right? But what Cormac McCarthy does in this book is say, well, are you sure? Are you sure that, the American pie is as good as it smells? Are you sure there aren't X factors here? Are you sure that things haven't gotten worse over the last several decades? Are you sure that free will really exists? Or was all of this already determined from the second you were born, and everything, every life decision you've ever made was based on a coin flip? I don't know. I don't know how to answer these questions, but Cormac McCarthy is playing with a lot of different ideas and themes that I found incredibly provocative. I liked these characters. I like the way this story is told. The style is so different. Cormac McCarthy makes a lean book. This is not a very long book, especially by my standards, where I read 1,200 pages all the time. But this is a really short novel. I think it's under 8 hours on Audible. Also, highly recommend the Audible. It's incredible. The audiobook, it's really good. But there's no fat in this book. It feels like every single sentence, every single page moves the story further along, or Cormac McCarthy is doing something with these characters or with this atmosphere that he's created in order to make a point. And there are very few books where I can genuinely say there's no fat on it. Like there's nothing that couldn't have been cut. This is one of them, though. This is genuinely one of those books where there's no fat on this. This has got 0% body fat, man. In fact, if this were a little bit longer, I would not have blamed the author. If this were another 100 or at least another 50 pages long with a bit more of a resolution, I wouldn't blame the guy. But the way this comes out, the way that this book is packaged is tight. This book is very tight. This dude does not waste commas. He does not waste quotations. It's short sentences, to the point. It's in your face. And you're either going to love this thing or you're not going to like it at all. It is a very unique experience. I think Cormac McCarthy is a very unique author. And going into this, I didn't know how much I was going to like this. I genuinely did. I love the movie, the 2008 movie or whatever it was. I really, but other than that, I've stayed away from Cormac McCarthy because I had a bad experience back in high school. I read The Road, really didn't like it, and it turned me off for years from his work. But I can tell you now, coming back as, post-college, I've read a ton of other forms of literature. There's just something about this book I just really appreciate. Like the style and the substance and the characters and the atmosphere and the intensity and the commentary, the social commentary and the themes that Cormac McCarthy puts in this book is just very well crafted. I mean, this is a genius book. And it's not going to work for everyone. This is not one of my universal you have to read recommendations. But I will say, if the things I've kind of talked about or poked at interest you, you should definitely give this a go. Because this is, again, probably one of the best novels I've ever read, just front to back. It achieves an incredible amount in a very short amount of time. It's very provocative, and it's going to make you think for literally forever. This is not a book that will escape your brain for a very long time. And I just really appreciate that. So I'm going to give it a 9.5 out of 10. I think if I read this, I might give it a 10. I don't know. This is genuinely a brilliant book, and probably the best one I've read all year. It's that good.